We would request Miss Priya to remain on stage for an informative chat with Miss Mansi Zaveri. Miss Zaveri is the founder and CEO of India's most trusted discovery platform for parenting and child, that is Kidstop Press. Based out of Mumbai, this mom combined her passion for the digital medium and her parenting journey to become an entrepreneur, leaving behind her corporate life to help parents make wise and informed decisions.
With a digital reach of over 2 million, Miss Mansi is the voice of the new age discerning Indian parent and has emerged to be the strongest speaker, to be the strongest influencer in the baby care and parenting space. With immense hard work and passion, Miss Mansi has built Kids Stop Press into an enormously successful brand that today has India's first ever parents and kids podcast show and an app that simplifies parenting and is available at your fingertips. We welcome you on stage, Miss Mansi.
Yeah, welcome. And it's a pleasure to have her. And also, while we make this a chat, if you have any questions, we'd be free to take them. Yeah, so how do you introduce yourself?
So I think the easiest way to introduce me would be mom of two. So yeah, I think that's the biggest qualification right now, and I'm learning. And like the topic that we're going to speak on today, which is how to be a less stressful parent. I'm a work in progress parent. Every day I'm learning different, and it's one of the most challenging roles that I play. Then entrepreneur.
You as a co-passenger on a flight would be a pleasure. Because when people ask me on a flight, what do you do? And I say I'm a motivational speaker, they change the seat. Yeah? Because the general thing is, oh, ye gyan dengi abhi. Yeah, so, which is really cool. So tell me, how can parenting be something of a spiritual experience? While people are struggling, how do you think it could be a spiritual one?
So one, I think that parenting is one role that kind of even questions why should we even have children, and I always tell them that listen, you don't need to, but it's the most for me. It's the most selfless form of love that I have ever experienced, and that's why it's spirituality to a different level because you're doing things beyond you, right? So and I think when a human starts thinking beyond themselves, you're already a level
Yeah.
above.
Yeah. And how does one make it stress free? I mean, today as a working parent, we already have so much stress from our work, and the natural tendency is to bring it home.
Yeah.
And then the children are ready with their world, with
Yeah.
their problems, and the day hasn't ended when you come home. So, how do you come home stress free and handle it? Or is that even possible?
Priya made it sound very doable, and I was just trying to pick and choose, what is really doable for me. And I think the first I can only talk out of my experience and about all the experiences that I meet when I speak with parents. One is you define your normal as a family. Very, very important. Otherwise, you will be miserable, especially in a space where Instagram pictures look out of the world, like people have shot them for hours, and then you're going to compare your life with them. Oh my God, you're really going to be miserable. So first is you define your normal, what works for your family. Second, define, and this is what I do best, you figure out what part of the day are you a good human being. We all have like, I can't wake up until I've had 3 cups of coffee, and I can't stay awake because I'm like a bad parent in the night. I mean, that happens to me. Anything after 8 p.m. and I just kind of switch off because I'm a morning person. So I try to, and there's a book that I've read which is called Eat the Frog First, right? So the hard part of the day, do it in the morning. So example, because I'm a working parent and my kids are about 10, I feel like because I'm a better person and a better human being in the morning, I wake them up at 6 and get them to study then because I can be a better person that time. And I am less stressed out because, like it or not, especially when you're an entrepreneur and, everything now is like, you know, I feel like earlier when our parents were working, at least once your father was home or once your mother was home, they were home. And now it's so fluid, like, okay, no problem, let's get on a call at 7 p.m. Or, yeah, why don't we Skype at 9? Like, yeah, we can. And, because we're always striving to do more, you're like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And that's that black hole that you will keep walking without there being any light at the end of the tunnel. So I would just say pick and choose what part of the day works best for you. Try and prioritize and figure it out then. And I think that makes a significant amount of difference in trying to say, how you can be a less stressful parent. Also, pick and choose your battles, right? And this was, in one of the interviews that I was appearing for when my children were getting into school admissions was, what is a non-negotiable for you as a parent? And that question really got me thinking that really, like, I want this, I want this, I want this. But 10 years later, I've realized, and this is something my pediatrician also told me, I was like, listen, my child has too many tantrums and she's crying for this, crying for this. It's like, pick and choose your battles. You'll never be able to win all. And from then, I've just started prioritizing. What are your non-negotiables? I mean, if you see a parent's life, what are they like, I know a lot of parents tell me, we are just constantly telling them, brush your teeth, do this, change your clothes, go have a bath. We are nagging them on very little things which are of very inconsequential in the future. Like, your pediatrician, when you would have first gone to him, would have said, it's okay. No adult today, continues to wear a diaper, right? They will grow out of that diapering phase. So stop stressing over it. And again, all of these thoughts keep coming back because really, if we stop nagging for those little things, they'll be fine. Like, what are your non-negotiable core values as a family, right? If they lie, if they're unhappy, if they've cheated on something, if they've been mean and nasty to somebody, those are our non-negotiables. Define what are your non-negotiables and then pick and choose. Listen, have you been mean, nasty, dishonest, any of these? Then you have to intervene. Otherwise, I think they're fine. When she was talking about go figure, I was one of four, and I was literally the fourth of the sibling, and my parents never took care of me. Like, I till date tell my mom, you just let me grow and just grow up in the jungle. Literally, I had nobody to kind of say that, oh, I fell down, or because my parents were done parenting by the time I was born. And literally, if I was to say that I've just figured life all along the way. So that's the same thing that I tell my kids as well. Just go figure. Come to me with a problem you can't solve.
Yeah, those were the days,
Those were the days.
Yeah, when you would get backed even for falling in trouble. I remember we were in school, we were playing, and there was this wall. So we were just saying who can jump over the wall. And I was the athlete, remember, from slow cycling. I said, I can jump. So I ran over the steps and I leaped over the wall. But I didn't know on the other side of the wall, they had, the wiring, the barbed wire. So there's this whole bracket kept there so that they could fence it. And I fell in it. So you can imagine, yeah, exactly. My legs were peeled right till my knees. And I go home and my father looks at me and first he gives me a whack. Why didn't you look? Now that's a very big life lesson. Before you leap over the wall, at least look what's there. Yeah. Before making a career choice, at least look what's there. Don't fall into a barbed wire again. And then he bandaged my leg. Those were the days, I tell you. Yeah. So tell me, how does one deal with demands and tantrums and, all these things that these kids want to buy and own and have, which we don't know exist?
So honestly, I think what you said is that, parents are the first user manual that a child gets. So I completely agree with you that you have to be that user manual because they're going to follow. At the same time, it's very important and when I was interviewing a really great legend who I really admire, Andre Agassi, he told me this and it's kind of just etched in my head. I said, how do you tell your kids no? And he said, rules without relationships leads to rebellion. So if you have that relationship and you have those rules in place, but you have to have that dialogue to build that relationship. You can't suddenly go and tell your child, hey, you can't do this. You have to build that relationship and that equation to tell your child that, listen, I am not in a place of authority, but in a place of being your friend or somebody who's had far more experience to tell you that, hey, this is wrong. Or this is the rule and this is the protocol and you got to follow it. So I think that is something that's very important. And I also feel that, like you just said, I think kids are so smart and so intuitive. they know exactly what's going on. Like if you tell me, if they throw a tantrum about I don't have this thing, sure, we can't have it. We can't be truthful to them that I don't think A, you need it, B, I don't think I can afford it, or C, I don't think that you should have it at this age. Like my daughter's 10 and everybody or almost everybody in her classroom has a cell phone, but she hasn't found the need yet, or that peer pressure hasn't kicked in that listen, I need a cell phone because everybody has it. Because we've not said that you can't use a cell phone, you can't see the iPad, you can't watch TV. The TV is invariably playing in our house because we all live in joint families or whatever. But they have so many other things to do that the TV is not come as a thing that I must sit and watch. Also, it cannot be a babysitter. It's something that we do as a family. Like we love watching TV. Now, when I tell this to people, it's bizarre because they're like, your children don't have screen time. I said, no, they don't have a screen time because I'm watching it with them. And yeah, we're watching a movie that goes up to like 2.5 hours. Yes, we're watching screen time in a day for 2.5 hours. But we may not watch TV for the 2 whole weeks because we're not watching anything else. But if yes, there's a show that they want to watch, sure, watch it with them because then that's quality time together. You're watching it with them. So I think just talking to them is made, and talking to them right from the beginning. So, when you mentioned that roti comes and, all of that, I think that's a conversation channel that my parents kept open. And, like how much ever I like being independent, I still like it when either of my parent is home when I'm eating, or at least one meal a day we're just kind of together, because it's not something that you're doing alone. It just feels like you're loved. It just feels like you're important. So I think that's what's worked for us.
Oh, nice. And kids are very smart. I mean, I have friends, I have one particular friend who's launching his son. So I can't talk about him because they're launching him as a singer. So I was sitting in the house one time and he just came from Riyadh. So he asked me, he was just saying, what time is it? And I looked at my watch and I told the time. He said, how stupid are you to wear a watch? So I said, what? He said, you have a phone, right? He said, you look at your phone all the time and then now you're looking at your watch to tell me the time. So I said, how smart are you? Do you not have a phone? He's 13 years old. He doesn't have a cell phone. So I asked his mother, did your son not ask for a phone? She said, no. And I said, how did you do that? Because I need to educate everybody else. How do you keep your children away from technology? So she said, he comes back from school and he goes into Riyadh, he goes into sports, and he goes into all of these things that he has not yet found the need to find something to do because he has nothing to do. When do we start looking around that what do you have, what she doesn't have? When do you lift your head up and look at what others are doing when you're not doing something really important? That kid, I tell you, I've heard him sing. That kid is going to be the new sensation on the block. Yeah? So if children, I think, are pushed into avenues of their liking, they will find their own focus.
Yeah. Like just when I was watching the kids do capoeira, like trust me, I have been trying to do a handstand, an independent handstand without the wall, for like 5 years now, right? I still can't get rid of the wall. I am so envious, not envious in a bad way, but in a good way, because they're not scared to fall, right? Like think of the time when we were crawling. We would just like crawl, fall, get up again, crawl, fall, get up again, right? But now when you have to actually think of, oh, I want to do this, you're so intimidated by failure. Like when I started Kids Stop Press, there was no fear of failure. What was I benchmarking myself against? Something that didn't even exist. And that's what the children are, right? So, I mean, I don't remember myself speaking so confidently when I was this little. Like just to get into like a school play was like a big achievement. To be presenting like this, oh my God, my parents would have been like on top. I mean, like now when we send WhatsApp forwards to zillions of parents saying, "Arey, mere bete ne ye kiya aur beti ne ye kiya," whatever. Like like just the exposure that these kids have is amazing. Like growing up to, just growing up to have fun. Like growing up, like I didn't even know that there was a Brazilian martial art form when we were young, and I'm sure neither of you all. But look what exposure's done. Look what learning has become, right? And I just feel like learning for these kids is not going to be confined to a classroom. It's got to be problem solving, and it's got to be learning and adapting and constantly learning. The minute they stop learning, they will be outdated. So I think what the whole theme is in terms of learning beyond boundaries is amazing, because the minute you're confined, you will stop growing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the school system also plays a very important role, because as a parent, you can only spend so much time. But the facility, the kind of environment the school has, I grew up in Chandigarh, and in my class, my parents put us in a public school, and we had 5 kids in my class, all through, till the 8th standard. Now imagine you have 5 kids in the class. How long does the class last? Yeah, so if my school was till 1 o'clock, we were done by 11. You know, you're within 5 kids, you're done. And that was a blessing, because we had so much time to do other things, other activities, you know, extracurricular activities. We had everything. So while a normal child in a school would get to choose 2 things, we chose 6, because we had so much time, you know, and the liberty. And I think today the education system has changed so much. I was sitting down and they were telling me about the facilities you have. My God, where I would have been if I had this kind of exposure that the education system itself is giving, which I think parents today are not aware of, can't afford, or can't give, just because of lack of time, not resources, just lack of time. And it's amazing if an education body can take that up, you know, and make it so much easier. I was
Right.
very
Even if
impressed,
they're
I
just
must tell you.
if they're just curious enough, and you're
Yeah.
just feeding that curiosity, I think it's job well done.
Yeah. You know, I want to open it to you guys. You have an expert here. Do you want to ask a question? And do we have a mic we can pass around? Or maybe you can just...
Yeah, you can just take.
Thank you, dear. Yes, she will get you...
It's on. The most important question, which I actually was here to understand, such a lot of competition, the group competition with SMSs, with WhatsApps, and the photographs, as well as what my kid is doing, what your kid is doing. How do you cope up? And how do you get away from the competition and create a new vision, as you say, get the calling of the child and get him do the right thing instead of pushing them into ye kar raha hai to tum bhi kar lo kind of concept? It happens with most of the parents as well as with kids, especially. He's doing this, I also want to learn. That's something which needs
No,
to be.
I think it's a very, very important question. And we get a lot of this on how to deal with competition. And competition is there everywhere, right? So, right at the young age, school, growing up, MySpace, so much competition that somebody else gets picked over somebody else or whatever, it doesn't matter. Because I just feel that 2 things. One is, like I said, if you start defining your normal as a family, right? And that's close to your heart, start building concentric circles around that core. Okay? That really helps, because you will start realizing what is important, what is not important. Also, as parents, and again, I'm speaking this purely as no expert, but just maybe 10 years ahead, is that we are always vested in our child's result. Okay, like she said, Gopichand once told me in an interview that sports gives you way more than just medals. Medals is just a part of it, right? Now, the reason I say this is because, you know, my daughter, example, was learning a musical instrument for 4 years. Okay, and I was like, my God, I was like tugging along, and she was learning a big instrument, like it's a cello, and she was learning that, and I was going to class, learning, practicing. I almost co-learned the instrument with her, because I was like, dude, how do I make you practice a cello when I have never even heard it in my life, right? It was tough, I'm telling you. But over a period of time, I realized I need to stop being vested in the result, because when I started doing that, I was a horrible parent. I was really a horrible parent, because I was only interested in her being part of that finale and that performance and being picked. But that's a journey that you will need to cross, and it's not going to happen overnight. So stop being, and it's okay. Like, I mean, when I look at it, not everybody is a prodigy, and I think it's important to accept that, you know, hard work plays a very, very important role. And, you know, like she said, go figure. The jugaad in our lives is also very, very important, because I think a lot of us are here where we are today is because we've learned the tricks of the trade, right? If everybody was a prodigy, then hard work would be, kind of irrelevant. Also, I feel in competition, we're all born with a very unique thumbprint, right? Which is only unique to us. So no matter how much you replicate, like Siddharth is here. He's like one of the first guys to start Food Darzi and keto and educate so many people in the keto space. It's going to take no time for people to say, hey, this is a great business. Let's just go ahead and replicate and see stuff. And if he starts fearing that, he's going to closet himself and stop creativity from coming in, right? So I just feel like competition is always going to exist. And listen, social media should only make you learn, should not make you feel inadequate. I mean, that's something we strongly practice on Kids Talk Press. Social media is great to learn. The minute it starts making you feel inadequate of you as a family, you as your child, stop following that person. Just unfollow immediately. And that's really hard from coming from a person whose business is thriving on social, but I strongly recommend it.
And I also feel that competition, children are too young to understand what is competition. When we were young, we were just having fun with friends, whether we were playing a game and so on. We were not thinking that I want to put you down, I want to win. I think competition is a concept which comes from adults. In my family, like for instance, I was the shortest of the family, still am. So I would always be put, stand with him, just to say, oh, my son is taller than you. So I think these little things come also from parents, comparisons. Comparison leads to competition. So because my parents knew I was the shortest, they never made any comparison to anybody. They never said, you're better than him, he's better than you, and so on. And when my father said, to win the bicycle, you have to stand first, and I asked him how, he said, if you're getting 7 out of 10, now get 8, then get 9, then get 10. So I never had to look who is getting what percentage and who I have to beat. So the concept was very simple, that improve on your grades and you will reach 10. How much he is reaching or how much he is reaching doesn't matter. And that's something I've followed all my life. Aap apna kaam karte raho. You've written one book, now write one more, then one more. I never wanted to win so many awards, but it just happened to pile up, not seeing who did this. And by the way, I just figured, in one of the interviews, they said, oh, you're the only Indian author, because they did research because they wanted to make my article newsworthy. So they were finding out, okay, this can go in the Guinness Book Record, this can do this and so on. But I never did a comparison who's doing what. And I think that's a great place to be. So competition is a stress point, which I think is more adult initiated than a child, invented. So easen it up there. Tell your kid to make little improvements every day and he'll reach the top, whichever mountain he wants to climb, even if he's alone.
Okay, so I think we'll end because
Yes.
we're eating into Siddharth's time.
Yes,
So,
so-
anybody, any question, happy to take it offline.
Yes, so you can, write to her on Twitter, and on social media. And I really like the stuff that you're doing. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Thank you.